All right, welcome back, Prospect Live viewers. We're back with another 2020 MLB player breakdown. Of course, joining me today, courtesy of perfectgame.org, is PG's National Scouting Supervisor. That is Brian Sakowski. Brian, today's subject, Luke Little. Very exciting name, a guy who over the last few weeks has popped a little on Twitter. Obviously, we saw the video of him throwing 105, if I remember correctly. We got some video here. Credit to Donald Boyles, by the way, for this very recent video, I think dating back to November, of the San Jack lefty here. But talk to me a little bit about Little, probably one of the bigger names in the JUCO class, and I know you're a JUCO bandit.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot to like about the guy just on the surface. He's 6'9", 240 pounds or whatever, and granted, the 105 we only saw one time in a one pitch video on Twitter, but aside from that, there's well documented he throws 101, 102. So I mean, just that in and of itself, how many 6'9" lefties throw 102? None, one. Little, so like that there, you look for rarity and you look for unusual when you're scouting, and that's that right there. There's some drawbacks there. He doesn't have a really long history of throwing strikes. He doesn't have a real long history of consistency in terms of his off-speed stuff. There are a lot of concerns about him. Probably realistically, he's a reliever long term. But with that being said, you're looking at a guy who, when he harnesses it, and I saw him, he was, the last player I saw before the shutdown happened. Literally the last player I saw before the shutdown. And it was good. It was 94, 98. He threw a lot of strikes. It's like 70 angle on the fastball, especially when he's working at glove side. Yeah. And the slider was solid average, one or two were 55, one or two were 45. Right in there in that 50 mix. And I don't know if you can really grade it to plus, but even still, you're talking about a guy who in one inning stints is, an 80 fastball type of guy, 80 fastball quality when you consider the angle. And as long as you have a solid average to above average off-speed pitch that you can throw for strikes off of that, I mean, hard not to believe that that's a guy who's going to pitch at the back end of a big league bullpen at some point.
Absolutely. With bigger guys like this, one of the concerns is always, how well they stay in time, how good are their mechanics. What do you think about his mechanics and his arm stroke? Obviously, it's a little slower and plodding, as you could see in that video, but what are your overall thoughts there? I'm kind of interested because I know you guys obviously over there at Perfect Game do a great job of digging into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the thing that concerns me, if we're going to talk about it mechanically, and it's a little bit better now than it was in that video. He'd made some improvements, and Woody Williams at San Jack, their pitching coach, had helped him make some improvements. It's long and it's offline is something that stands out. It's not necessarily the direction of the elbow or the height of the elbow, but look at how offline the arm stroke gets in comparison to his body. And when you're talking about an arm stroke that's not only long, but it's offline like that, then the timing concerns come in where you start talking about, okay, how consistently can this dude who has gigantic limbs to begin with, going that far offline through the back, how many times can we consistently repeat that in a row to have command? Let alone command. How many times can we repeat that enough to throw enough strikes, control-wise? And he's shown the ability to do that. He didn't walk anyone the time I saw him, for example. He's had, good Northwoods appearances. He was really good at San Jack when he was on the mound. It's a guy that you're hoping you can get average command out of. And if he does, then he will pitch in a big league bullpen. I think that's almost a foregone conclusion. But yeah. So that's there's some things that I think he could potentially iron out there. And I think that as a developmental trajectory, he's still pointed way up because he was – he was a project. He really was. Yeah. And the way that they've developed him at San Jack is to the results that he's at now is sensational.
Yeah. And, one of the more well-known JUCO programs obviously out there, if not the most well-known. But final question here. Where do we think Little goes on draft day? Is he a day one guy? And, if so, where do you think he goes?
I don't know if it's day one. I'm thinking it's more day two. I think he's in play. We have him in the third round on our board, but I think he's in play whenever the reliever run starts. whenever Burl Caraway goes, or whoever the number one reliever on the board is, whenever that guy goes, and we start to see that run on those college relievers that we do every draft, I think he'll be right there, ready to roll. So anywhere from 2 to 3, 2 to 4, maybe it's whenever that run starts, I think we'll see him come off the board after that.
Yeah, and it's obviously tough to predict that sort of thing, especially with this year with all the uncertainty. But
Right.
he lands in day 2. That's a really high upside pick for whatever team ends up landing Luke Little. Thanks for joining us again, guys. We'll be back with another one.